Let's talk about the most powerful playlist on Spotify. I'm not talking about Rap Caviar or Pop Rising, and I'm definitely not talking about that playlist you just pitched to that has 145,000 real listeners on it. I'm talking about Discover Weekly. Now, Discover Weekly is an algorithmically generated playlist that is customized for every single user on Spotify, and it is the most robust way to leverage Spotify's algorithm on an ongoing basis to generate more streams and more fans for your music directly on the platform. Now, this can really break down into three primary parts. Number one, we're going to talk about why Discover Weekly is the most powerful playlist on Spotify. Number two, we're going to talk about how Discover Weekly works. What are the mechanics of it? And number three, I'm going to teach you some tricks to take advantage of Discover Weekly to get your music on it and leverage the power of that playlist to grow as an artist on Spotify. Okay, so why is Discover Weekly the most powerful playlist on Spotify? Now, I can already hear some of you in the comments section furiously typing about how, no, radio's the most important, Tom. No, it is Rap Caviar. No, my playlist is awesome. Look, I'm sure there have been differing results for a lot of different artists out there, but I believe Discover Weekly is the most powerful playlist on Spotify because it is the one that has accessibility regardless of the age of the song, and it is the one that you can most directly measure your impact on based on your inputs. So what does that mean? Well, basically it means if you send enough traffic to Spotify, you can trick the algorithm into favoring your song for Discover Weekly. And everything else is downstream of Spotify's algorithmic understanding of your track that can be boosted and improved by Discover Weekly. There's no doubt that radio is a long-term generator of streams for artists with really good algorithmic understanding on Spotify. But to get that algorithmic understanding, you can go through Discover Weekly in a way that sends your track out to people who have listened to you before or never heard of you before, but listened to similar artists. It's very difficult to actually impact radio in a tangible way by using organic content or paid advertising with measurable results that you can say, this came from my efforts and radio is the result of that. With Discover Weekly, we can do that. We can actually put information and energy into the hopper, so to speak, and see the outcome on Discover Weekly. Now, there's also no doubt that Release Radar is an incredibly powerful playlist, but it is not the most powerful playlist because there is only a limited window of time that you can get on Release Radar for any given song. And that's for the first 4 Fridays of the release of every single track, if you've pitched it to Spotify's editorial team. There's also no doubt that big editorial playlists are incredibly powerful for extending the reach of artists and particular tracks. But again, those are very difficult to tangibly and measurably impact, especially as an independent artist. Realistically, getting on Discover Weekly with a really great track will ultimately lead to editorial placements for your song if it's good enough and the song has enough momentum. But Discover Weekly really is the big gatekeeper. It's the stepping stone to springboarding your song onto editorial playlists. The only way to circumvent that is to be on a major label or have connections within the industry, which most of us don't. So how does Discover Weekly work? Well, the short answer is if you have a popularity score of 30%, you will get what is kind of referred to as a Discover Weekly push on Spotify. Now, inside of Spotify for artists, this will look like little peaks in your data inside of the audience tab. So you can see a peak here within the last 28 days where I've gotten on Discover Weekly and had a bit of a push for one of my tracks. And then if I expand out, you can see multiple peaks throughout the history of my catalog. Now, there are some obvious big peaks in here, but even the smaller ones are little bitty Discover Weekly bumps that happen every single Monday. I get a song put on the playlist and sent out to other people who don't follow me on Spotify. Now, if we back up a little bit, a popularity score of 25% starts getting your song sort of considered for Discover Weekly. So you'll start to see a handful of streams trickle in inside of Spotify for artists when you get to that 25% mark. But once you get to 30, that's when the pushes really start to happen. So how does Spotify calculate this? Well, the biggest thing is raw streams within a trailing 28-day window. So somewhere between 9,000 and 10,000 streams gets your song to a popularity score of 30%. Now, there are also other factors like save rate, number of listeners, things like that, that do impact your popularity scores, let's say efficacy of getting that Discover Weekly push. If you have 10,000 streams from one listener and 0 saves, you're not going to get a Discover Weekly push. So the traffic has to be organic, or at least appear organic to Spotify's algorithm for it to give you the leverage of that playlist. Now, as an example, I have 2 songs that have gotten Discover Weekly traffic within the last 28 days, my song Lions and my song Hero. Now, if we look inside my Spotify for Artists account, you can see that my song Hero has just over 9,000 streams over the past 28 days, and my song Lions has just over 13,000 streams over the past 28 days. And this correlates to popularity scores of 29% and 32% respectively. Now, I'm using a tool called the Artist X-Ray to track these popularity scores. If you want to give your catalog a test, I'll leave a link to that in the description of this video. But you can see how the number of streams in conjunction with the save rate and number of listeners and things directly impacts the popularity score of a track on Spotify. And then that popularity score combined with those metrics impacts a song's ability to be leveraged by Discover Weekly. If a song is leveraged by Discover Weekly and sent out to more people who either follow you or don't follow you, have heard of you, have listened to people similar to you or whatever, Spotify's algorithmic picture of that track becomes more robust and improves and associates you with better genres and artists who are closer to you. And then that will filter down into radio and you will get more radio streams because Spotify's algorithm has a better understanding of your track, of you as an artist. Furthermore, if your song is good enough, Discover Weekly will serve as the springboard to pushing you further up, getting a higher popularity score, and ultimately ending up on editorial playlists if your track has what it takes. Okay, so let me teach you how to take advantage of Discover Weekly. How can we use this playlist to our advantage as artists? And starting with, how can we just get on it? I know a lot of us struggle to get songs to a popularity score of 30%. Getting between 9,000 and 10,000 streams a month for a single track can seem like a mountain to climb for most artists. The single most effective way that I have discovered to leverage Discover Weekly for a track is to really hit it hard on the first weekend and within the first 7 days of the release of any given song. If you can get to a popularity score of 20% within the first 7 days of releasing a track, which equates to about 2,500 streams plus, the appropriate saves and listeners, etc., then you will get a release radar push. Now, this is very important that this happens within the first week. If it happens within the second week, that push will be much smaller than it would otherwise have been if you get it within the first week of release. That's why that first weekend and that first week are so incredibly important. Now, it's possible to get a song on Discover Weekly 2 years, 5 years after it has come out. It's just more difficult. If you can leverage Release Radar at the onset of releasing your track, then Release Radar will serve as a springboard to Discover Weekly, which will then serve as a springboard to radio and then to editorial playlists. So if you can make it happen very quickly when you release a song, that is the most effective and sort of tried and true method for pulling this off. Now, if you don't have a new track and you want to get an old one on there, the main thing you want to do is generate enough traffic to the song to get enough streams to reach that benchmark. Now, the most effective ways I know how to do this are to post a lot of really good organic content. Get really great at making short form video for TikToks, Reels, YouTube Shorts, and post a lot of them. You're trying to generate momentum. You can also take those Reels and TikToks and Shorts and boost them using ads to generate more momentum on that content. But I will tell you, if the content is not good to begin with, it's probably not going to translate over to Spotify as effectively as something that is actually good to begin with. The other way is to use ads simply driving traffic to Spotify. You can use short form style videos. You can use videos just simply made from the cover art of your song and the music in the background. I do that all the time. It works great. In fact, I am running ads for Hero and Lions currently using that exact same format. It is how they have sustained Discover Weekly over and over again throughout the past couple of years. They have constantly stayed on Discover Weekly because I'm constantly running ads in the background in addition to creating content online. The primary objective is this: you got to send a lot of traffic to Spotify in a short window of time. The shorter window of time you can do it, the more of like a surprise attack you can pull off, especially with new releases, the more effectively you will leverage that algorithm and push that popularity score up faster. If you get 9,000 streams over a year, it's not going to do anything. If you get 9,000 streams in one day, it's going to have a huge outsized impact on the reach of your track and your growth as an artist. So that's Discover Weekly, the most powerful playlist on Spotify. Now, if you want to take advantage of it, then get out there and make some organic content, start running some ads. If you want to learn how to do either one of them, you can check out a ton of content on my channel, maybe starting with this video right here. And as always, thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.